Have you ever felt like life is harder for you than it is for everyone else? You watch people around you glide through life with ease while you're constantly fighting battles they can't even see. You pray more than they do. You live with more integrity than they do. You try harder, give more, sacrifice more. And yet somehow your road is steeper, your burden's heavier, your pain deeper. You've probably asked God 1,000 times, why? Why does it have to be this hard for me? Here's what you need to understand. If you're experiencing this, it's not because God has forgotten you. It's not because you did something wrong. It's because you're chosen. And being chosen by God doesn't come with an easier life. The enemy recognizes you before people do. Here's the first reason you're suffering more. The enemy recognizes your potential before anyone else does. While people see who you are now, hell sees who you're becoming. While friends see your current limitations, demons see your future impact. While the world dismisses you as ordinary, the kingdom of darkness has already marked you as a threat. That's why the attack started early. That's why your childhood was harder than it should have been. That's why you face traumas that other people can't even imagine. It wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't just life happening. It was a calculated assault on your destiny. The enemy tried to destroy you before you even understood who you were, because he knew what you'd become if you survived. Think about it. Pharaoh didn't order the death of all Hebrew boys because he was randomly cruel. He did it because he sensed a deliverer was coming. He couldn't identify Moses specifically, so he tried to kill an entire generation. The enemy operates the same way in your life. He can't stop what God has ordained, but he'll try to wear you down, break you early, make you give up before you ever step into your purpose. That's why you face battles that seem disproportionate to your age or experience. That's why certain struggles have followed you for years. That's why you can't seem to catch a break when everyone around you seems fine. You're not imagining it. There really is more opposition in your life. But it's not because you're cursed. It's because you're called. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't a threat to his kingdom. He only attacks what he's afraid of. David understood this. Before he ever became king, while he was still a shepherd boy tending sheep in obscurity, he had to fight a lion and a bear. Nobody saw those battles. There were no cameras, no witnesses, no applause. Just a young boy facing predators that should have killed him. Why? Because God was preparing him to face Goliath. He was developing in David the faith and courage he'd need to lead a nation. Your early battles weren't meaningless. They were preparation. The attacks you survived weren't meant to break you. They were meant to build you. Every trial you've endured has been developing muscles you'll need for what's ahead. And the fact that the enemy has fought you so hard for so long is actually proof that there's something significant in you worth fighting for. Your suffering is preventing others' suffering. Here's something most people never consider. Your suffering isn't just about you. Often, God allows his chosen ones to endure pain so that others won't have to. Your tears are creating paths for people you'll never meet. Your battles are breaking generational curses that would have destroyed your children. Your struggles are producing wisdom that will guide multitudes through their own dark valleys. This is the principle of substitution. Jesus himself embodied it. Isaiah 53 verse 5 says, "By his wounds we are healed. His suffering accomplished our healing. His pain purchased our peace." One man's sacrifice provided redemption for countless souls. And while you're not Jesus, if you're called to carry his message, you'll often carry his methodology too. You'll suffer on behalf of others. Joseph is the perfect example. He didn't just endure slavery and prison for himself. His suffering positioned him to save entire nations from famine. Genesis 50 verse 20 records him saying to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." His personal pain had a corporate purpose. His individual tragedy set up a collective triumph. That's what's happening in your life right now. The hell you're walking through isn't pointless. It's purposeful. Every tear you're crying is watering seeds that will produce fruit in someone else's life. Every wound you're enduring is creating medicine for people who will face similar battles. Every valley you're trudging through is flattening ground for those who will walk this path after you. Your mother's addiction, your father's absence, your childhood trauma, your failed relationships, your financial struggles, your health battles. None of it is wasted. God is taking every ounce of that pain and transforming it into a testimony that will set captives free. Your mess is becoming someone else's message. Your test is becoming someone else's testimony. Your pain is becoming someone else's gain. This is why you can't give up. It's not just your life on the line. There are people whose deliverance depends on your breakthrough. There are souls who won't make it unless you do. Your suffering has generational implications. Your survival will save your lineage. The battles you're fighting today are determining the battles your children won't have to fight tomorrow. God trusts you with what He can't trust with others. Most people think suffering means God doesn't love you. The truth is exactly the opposite. God only entrusts heavy assignments to those whose love for Him can carry the weight. Not everyone gets chosen for this kind of journey because not everyone has what it takes to endure it. Your suffering isn't evidence of His absence. It's evidence of His confidence in you. Job understood this. God Himself bragged to Satan about Job's faithfulness. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. Then God allowed Satan to attack everything Job had. Why? Not because God didn't love Job, but because God trusted Job. He knew Job's faith was deep enough to survive what would destroy others. That's what's happening in your life. God has looked at your heart and said, this one can handle it. This one has the character, the faith, the resilience to carry what I'm about to place on them. Your suffering isn't punishment, it's promotion. It's not demotion, it's development. It's not rejection, it's selection. The Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12 verses 9 to 10. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses and insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Paul was given a thorn in the flesh precisely because his revelations were so extraordinary. God knew that without that thorn, Paul might become prideful. The thorn kept him humble while he carried heaven's secrets. Your thorn has the same purpose. Your struggle isn't random. It's calculated. It's keeping you humble while God prepares you for heights that would destroy an unprepared soul. It's keeping you dependent on Him while He develops something in you that will impact thousands. It's keeping you broken before Him, so when the blessing comes, you'll know exactly who gave it to you. Most people couldn't handle what you're going through. They'd quit. They'd walk away. They'd curse God and give up. But you haven't. You're still standing, still praying, still believing, still fighting. And that, right there, is why you were chosen. Not because you're perfect, but because you're persistent. Not because you're strong, but because you won't stop. Not because you have it all together, but because even when you're falling apart, you keep reaching for God. Your pain is producing a purity others don't possess. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it purifies it. Heat doesn't ruin metal, it removes impurities. And your suffering isn't breaking you, it's refining you. Every trial you walk through is burning away pride, selfishness, bitterness, and everything else that can't enter into your destiny. The chosen ones suffer more because they need to be pure to carry what God is trusting them with. Malachi 3 verses 2 to 3 describes God as a refiner's fire. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Notice that He sits. He doesn't walk away during the process. He monitors the temperature, controls the duration, and watches carefully until He can see His reflection in you. Your suffering has been supervised. God hasn't left you in the fire alone. He's been managing it the entire time. This is why your character is different. This is why you can't relate to people who haven't suffered. This is why shallow conversations bore you and superficial friendships don't satisfy you. You've been through too much to fake it. You've endured too much to play games. You've survived too much to waste time on what doesn't matter. The fire has burned away everything trivial and left only what's essential. Think about Daniel. He was thrown into a lion's den, and when they pulled him out, there wasn't a scratch on him. Why? Because Daniel's character had already been tested and proven. His enemies couldn't find any corruption in him despite searching for it. His purity made him untouchable even in the midst of danger. That's what suffering produces, a character so refined that even your enemies can't find fault with you. Or consider the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The fire was so hot that it killed the guards who threw them in. But when the king looked into the furnace, he saw 4 figures walking around unharmed. The 4th looked like a son of the gods. Your fire isn't consuming you either. God is in it with you. And what's coming out of this fire won't be a broken version of you. It will be the purest, strongest, most anointed version of you that's ever existed. The purity your suffering produces isn't just about avoiding sin. It's about gaining clarity. It's about knowing exactly who you are and who you're not. It's about being able to stand in any room, the boardroom or the courtroom, the palace or the prison, and remain unchanged because your identity is anchored in something deeper than circumstances. That kind of purity is rare. That kind of character is costly. And that's why only the chosen ones are trusted to pay that price. Your destiny requires a foundation that shallow soil can't provide. Buildings don't just appear. Before construction begins above ground, there's extensive work below ground. The taller the building, the deeper the foundation. And if God is building something significant through your life, He has to dig deep. That digging process is painful. It feels like you're going backward while everyone else is moving forward. But you're not going backward. You're going down so you can eventually go up. Jesus illustrated this in the parable of the sower. Some seed fell on rocky ground where soil was shallow. It sprouted quickly but withered just as fast because it had no root. Other seed fell on good soil and produced a crop, 30, 60, even 100 times what was sown. The difference wasn't the seed. It was the depth of the soil. Your suffering is creating depth. Your trials are developing roots that shallow people don't have. This is why you can't rush the process. This is why shortcuts don't work. This is why when you try to bypass the pain, you end up back in it. God isn't being cruel. He's being thorough. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. He knows that what He's about to build through your life is so significant that it requires a foundation most people don't have the patience to develop. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led Israel out of Egypt. That wasn't wasted time. That was foundation building time. God was developing in Moses the patience, humility, and dependence he'd need to lead millions of stubborn people through a desert. If Moses had tried to lead immediately after leaving Pharaoh's palace, he would have failed. The foundation wasn't ready yet. Paul spent years in obscurity after his Damascus Road experience. He wasn't immediately launched into ministry. He went to Arabia. He spent time being mentored by the apostles. He endured rejection and hardship before he ever wrote a letter that would become scripture. Why? Because premature promotion leads to ultimate failure. God was building a foundation that could support the weight of the revelation Paul would carry. Your suffering is your foundation. Every tear is cement. Every trial is rebar. Every setback is setting the structure for something that won't collapse when pressure comes. And trust me, pressure is coming. When God promotes you, when the anointing increases, when the platform expands, the enemy will attack harder. If your foundation isn't solid, you'll crumble. But if you've allowed God to do the deep work, you'll stand. That's why the chosen ones suffer more. Not because God enjoys watching you hurt, but because He's building something through you that requires a foundation ordinary suffering can't provide. Your pain has been an investment. And when the return comes, when you finally see why you went through what you went through, you'll understand that every moment of suffering was necessary. The greater the calling, the heavier the cross. Jesus said in Luke 9, verse 23, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Notice He didn't say might have to or occasionally. He said must, and He said daily. Following Jesus, really following Him into your calling, requires carrying a cross. Not once, not when you feel like it, daily. And the weight of that cross corresponds to the weight of your calling. This is why your cross feels heavier than other people's. Not because God is being unfair, but because your calling is bigger. Not because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared. Not because you're weak, but because God is making you strong enough to carry what He's about to place in your hands. John the Baptist was called to prepare the way for the Messiah. His cross was living in the wilderness, eating locusts and honey, wearing camel hair, being misunderstood by everyone, and eventually being beheaded for speaking truth. That seems extreme. Why couldn't he just have a normal ministry? Because his assignment wasn't normal. He wasn't called to gather a crowd. He was called to prepare the way for the Son of God. That kind of calling requires that kind of cross. Stephen was chosen to be the first Christian martyr. He preached one powerful sermon and was stoned to death. His ministry lasted moments, but his impact lasted millennia. Acts 7 records that as he was dying, he saw heaven opened and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Why standing? Because Jesus stood to honor a servant whose cross was heavy enough to match his calling. Your cross might be chronic illness that teaches you dependence. It might be financial struggles that keep you humble. It might be relational wounds that drive you to your knees. It might be misunderstanding from people you thought would support you. Whatever form it takes, understand this. It's custom designed for your specific calling. God isn't recycling someone else's trial and giving it to you. He's crafting something unique that will produce something equally unique through your life. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't carry it alone. Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30 records Jesus saying, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." How can a yoke and burden be light? Because when you're yoked with Jesus, He carries the heavy end. Your cross is lighter because His shoulders are under it too. If this message resonated with your spirit, subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking this journey together. Your suffering has a purpose. Your story isn't over, and the best is yet to come. God bless you. Have you ever felt like life is harder for you than it is for everyone else? You watch people around you glide through life with ease while you're constantly fighting battles they can't even see. You pray more than they do. You live with more integrity than they do. You try harder, give more, sacrifice more. And yet somehow your road is steeper, your burden's heavier, your pain deeper. You've probably asked God 1,000 times, why? Why does it have to be this hard for me? Here's what you need to understand. If you're experiencing this, it's not because God has forgotten you. It's not because you did something wrong. It's because you're chosen. And being chosen by God doesn't come with an easier life.